On this episode, we premiere a new series based on Bangkok's 7 Deadly Sins.
So if you want to hear a few reasons why Greg and I take pride in living in Bangkok, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to attend a furry convention, but it was too hot to wear my costume, so I just kind of drifted off into the city and I never left.
Wow, I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
And I met Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract almost 20 years ago, found that there were certain words that I couldn't pronounce, and now after 20 years I still can't, but I'm not leaving until I can.
Good for you, man. Stick with it.
That's right. That's the whole thing. There's just certain words, I just can't get them down right. But I'm working on it. All right, I want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, Liam Ahern, who supports us at the show Shadow Level. Stick around after we're done talking about the sin of pride to hear why Liam has given us an evil idea of how to make 1 million baht using his special attribute. Before we start, a huge thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a whole bunch of cool stuff, including our regular show a day early, behind-the-scenes photos and videos of our interviews, discounts on swag, which you can find on our website, and various other things that aren't available to regular listeners. But best of all, patrons like Liam also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and random topics. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we chatted about anniversaries, the 2-year anniversary of the famous Tham Luang cave rescue, and more depressing COVID news on what will hopefully end up being nothing, but I guess we have to wait and see. To become a patron, head to bangkokpodcast.com/support.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to try something a little different on this episode, and we're going to try something new, which was inspired by a conversation that I had with my buddy Bill, who is also a patron of the show. Shout out to Bill. So one of the things I like to do with Bangkok myself is to analyze it or classify it using weird tropes or different methodologies. Like on my blog one time, I made a Dungeons and Dragons alignment chart for Bangkok. You know, it had like everything from lawful good to chaotic neutral. If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons.
I have. I'm a big chaotic neutral fan myself.
I would say so. I made a little chart, a cool little diagram. We'll include that for our patrons in the mail that goes out. But I was thinking, Bangkok is sort of known as the city of sin, but which sin? And as you know, Ed, there are 7 deadly sins. So I thought it would be fun to do 7 sin-themed shows, not all together, where we discuss our favorite parts of Bangkok inspired by each sin. Bit of a high concept idea, you know?
Wow, it's a little bit dangerous. A lot of people do think of Bangkok as the city of sin.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a fun challenge for us to squeeze Bangkok in this way and see what comes out. So this week we are going to be discussing the first sin, and that is pride. So from Wikipedia, let's first get it out of the way. The official definition of the pride sin in Latin, I thought this was cool. In Latin, it's called superbia. But pride is considered in almost every list the original and most serious of the 7 deadly sins, the perversion of the faculties that make humans more like God, dignity, and holiness. It is also thought to be the source of the other capital sins. It is identified as a dangerously corrupt selfishness, the putting of one's own desires, urges, wants, and whims before the welfare of other people. And obviously you don't want this to get into like really dark territory here. This is not like the confession show or anything like that. So it's a bit dark. So for our purposes, the sin of Bangkok pride means things that make us proud to live here, things that we love to show off to new expats or first-time tourists, things that make me and Ed say, you're goddamn right, Bangkok is awesome, and this is why.
You know, it's funny, when you told me you wanted to do this, I like the idea. It's high concept. I like it. You're a big idea kind of guy. But it's tricky because we are talking about sins. And I think, so when I think about what I feel pride about in Thailand or in Bangkok, we have to remember that it is a sin, because I'm really going to talk about stuff that I really should not have pride in because I didn't do it. You know what I mean? You know, it's like, I think the reason pride is a sin is just like, it's often you're taking credit for something that's not really your accomplishment. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about something that you've done, but you really shouldn't take pride in other people's achievements. But there are certain things where, like, when people come to visit me here, I'm kind of proud to show them. You know, I'm like, hey, Bangkok's got this, or Thailand's got this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, the truth is that there are just certain things here that I was surprised about, or I didn't know about, that I just think are really cool. Like, and so when people come and people visit, I tell them, you got to check this, you got to check that out. And you and I both have been here so long, we've talked about it. This is definitely our home. And so it's normal to take pride in your home. It's normal to be like, hey, we got this. We worked this out. And, you know, and like I said, we is in quotes, because I didn't do shit. I didn't do anything. You know, I didn't like
look what I built.
Right. Yeah. I didn't build anything. I didn't really contribute to Thai culture in any way whatsoever. But there's just certain things about Thailand that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
For no good reason.
There are still people that I know back home that are probably still a little bit mystified as to why I'm here. You know, like, man, Greg left a long time ago. Like, what's keeping him there, I wonder. And these are the things that I say that explain my position. And Ed and I are each going to have chosen two things that we're going to talk about. But this is something that I say to my friends, like, look, this is one of the reasons why I'm here. This is cool. This is why I'm proud to call Bangkok my adopted home, Thailand my adopted home. So do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Okay, so I've really got two things, and one thing is something that I've talked about before. So I'm going to leave that for a second. So this other thing, I don't think I've ever specifically mentioned that as something that I think is cool or something that I like. But one thing that, and again, it's not like I should take pride in it, but I think Thailand's long history is just something that's very cool and interesting. And in particular, I'm a fan of Ayutthaya and the ruins at Ayutthaya. It's funny because I spent a lot of time in the States learning American history, but everyone knows America is actually a young country. You know, 1776, it's, you know, less than 250 years old. But Thailand traces its history back to King Ramkhamhaeng and, you know, in the 1200s or the 13th century. So we're looking at roughly more like 700 years. Right.
Same in Canada. Canada was founded in 1867, so it's even younger than America. But, you know, like, even when you go back to the oldest buildings, the oldest settlements in our countries, you're still only going back a couple of hundred years, maybe a bit more. And there's not much left. There's usually maybe like a recreation or something like that.
Right. So in the U.S., you can go to colonial towns, and I'm sure some of the buildings there are original buildings, but they've been improved or kept up or whatever, or maybe rebuilt. Like they're either a recreation or like a, you know, improvement. But when you go to Ayutthaya, you just see, to me, it's almost like you're entering another world. Now, I want to be clear, the style of the temples and the ruins in Ayutthaya is really Khmer, or part of this old Angkor empire. So the style is very similar to Angkor Wat in Cambodia. It is Thai, but it's very similar to. So, I mean, in a way, the best way to think of Ayutthaya, it's like a mini version of Angkor Wat. And that's why I think it's so amazing. And, like, you know, Ayutthaya is 45 minutes from Bangkok.
Right.
You know,
it's super close.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, Angkor is bigger and more extensive and more magical. There's like, Angkor is the ultimate thing to go to see. But it's fascinating that here in Bangkok, 45 minutes from us, we have like a mini, like, you know, whatever, 10 or 20% of Angkor, whatever it is. I just think it's cool and amazing, and it's this cool piece of Thai history, and it's so accessible. And these are the original buildings, so these are not recreations. It's not a rebuilt thing. These are the actual walls and the actual steps that were part of this incredible city of Ayutthaya. You know, Ayutthaya basically had a population of about 1 million, they think. So when it got sacked, so it was sacked by the Burmese in Greg, you got the year there? It's like in the 1780s?
1767.
Okay, 1767. Okay, so sacked by the Burmese. But at that time, they estimate the population was 1 million. And the population of Paris at that time was less.
Right.
And I'm not saying Utah was as advanced as Paris, but I mean, it was a major freaking international metropolis because it was a city of trade. So there was like a Danish settlement and like a Dutch settlement, and it was a very cosmopolitan city because it was a center of trade.
Yeah.
And so it's just I like that. I just think it's cool. Like Thailand has a rich history, and Ayutthaya is this kind of gem that is not far from Bangkok. It's cheap. It's a great place to take pictures. Like, other than, you and I have talked about photography before. We know a lot of places to take pictures in Bangkok. But when you go to Ayutthaya, it's different because these are like ancient temples, like the ruins of ancient temples. So you're in another world.
You're right. And it's cool having like, this access to hundreds and hundreds of years of history that's so casual. It's just right there.
Right.
And it's not crowded. It's not thronged. It's not protected. It's not behind glass walls. You can climb on these. You shouldn't, but you can climb on these things.
Well, some of it they let you do walk up, and some of it they have like barred off. But you can walk on some of it. It's funny, and part of it is being an American, because if you're Italian, you're used to Rome. If you're Greek, you're used to Athens. But I'm not used to that. So it's like there are Europeans who are like, oh, yeah, that building over there was built 500 years ago,
Right.
Like that's a European.
The bathroom on my house is 1,500 years old. But, but as a North American, I remember the first time I went to Utah, I was walking around going, my God, these bricks that I'm walking in the middle of are 500 years old. This building.
Right. Yeah.
It's incredible. But and even if it's not as old as the Roman ruins or something like that, or some of the ruins like Stonehenge or something like that.
Right.
It's not just Ayutthaya. There's I'm taking it a bit wider. There's also tons of other ruins all over the place, and a lot of them are just deserted. But it's such a really easy way to learn about a really interesting historical civilization that's right there.
For sure.
And that's cool.
Yeah. So I'm very far from an expert on Thai history, and I mean, it was your idea for us to do the Thai history episodes on this podcast, and I think it's great, man. I think Thai history is fascinating. It's so different from American history, and it's also much longer. It's just a simple truth. It's just much, much longer.
Good one.
So anyway, check out Ayutthaya if you come to Thailand or Bangkok. It's worth it.
True that. Well, the one that I was thinking about is something that I have shown a bunch of people when they've come here and they're new, and it's always been like, oh wow, and I'm like, yeah, isn't that awesome? And for long years and years and years, I've said that Bangkok is not a pretty city. It's an interesting city, it's a great city, it's an exciting city, but it's not particularly beautiful as world cities go. But I am always really proud of the Mahanakhon building on Narathiwat Road down by Silom and Saton.
I have a
the
confession.
Big glass pixelated tower.
I've never been in there. I mean, obviously I know the building. I've seen it. I've driven past. I've never been in there.
Really, you got to check it out. You go up to the top, and it's surprisingly slick. Like I was expecting to show up at the counter and be like, "Yes, I'd like to go to the top. Kumi, to moment." And they run to get someone who speaks English. But no, it's super slick. Like everyone speaks English, and they're like, "Welcome, sir. Would you like a ticket to the top, or would you like a ticket only to the observation deck?" That's very funny. Worth going up. But outside of that, just looking at it, it's a stunning building. It's gorgeous, and I think it's easy. As you walk by it every day and you go by it every day, it's easy to sort of get jaded and forget about it. But without fail, everyone who has seen it for the first time has gone, "Whoa, that's awesome." I'm proud that a building like that exists in Bangkok, and I'm proud that it probably, kicks things up a notch for what's coming in terms of architecture in the city.
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively new. Now it's been several years, like since 2016, but it's just impressive, and it's kind of bold. Like I just like that. I mean, some people don't like it, but that's the key.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when it first opened, people were complaining that the architect was German or something like that. It wasn't that a controversy.
Oh yeah, but I don't think that was not because they didn't like it. That was because the foreigner designed it. It was so awesome. They were jealous.
Right. I don't know. I have, like I said, I've never been there, but I agree with you. I think this is it's a gem.
Yeah, it's a great building.
Yeah, it's something that Bangkokers can be proud of.
I love looking at it. Every time I see it, I'm like, that's just so cool. And I even spent time with my son in Minecraft building it. And
oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, I think I put it on the Facebook page podcast Facebook page a while ago, and I built it out of glass, this like pixelated thing in Minecraft. But you couldn't really see the details, so I filled it with water, so it looked blue. It was awesome.
Okay, dude, I think you want to just spin that as like a dad thing. Otherwise, people are going to write you off as like the biggest nerd ever.
I'm way past that, dude. And FYI, Mahanakan Tower is 314 meters tall. It's got 78 stories.
And it's currently the tallest building in Thailand. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah, but not for long because there's a couple of big ones coming up.
Right, gotcha. All right, I guess my second thing. So I've talked about this before, but this is a different angle, and I want to talk about the second thing I'm proud of in Thailand that I love to show off is the quality of the musicians, especially blues, jazz, soul, like the kind of music that I like to listen to. When I moved to Thailand, I just expected that if I wanted to listen to live music, I would have to listen to Thai music. We've talked about Thai music before. There's some Thai pop that I like, some Thai rock that I like. And I really wish that I loved Thai traditional music, but I really don't. The bottom line is I don't. I'm just trying to be honest here. We always keep it real. I wish I loved, Mal Lam and Luk Tung music. I just don't. I don't. Whatever. Maybe it's just too foreign. I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, I think we're the same. We respect it as as its art form, and those who love it, and that's great. But for me, it just doesn't ring my bell.
Yeah, it has a cool sound, but I don't want to listen to it. But, and this is a gigantic but, this is a Kardashian-sized but. I love Thai musicians. So I can't say I love Thai music as in traditional Thai music. I can't say I love that, but I love Thai musicians, man. It's like it's funny. When I moved to Thailand, I cannot say that I had low expectations. I can't say that. I can just say I had no idea what to expect because I really came here utterly clueless. But when I first walked into Saxophone Pub on Victory Monument and I heard Chai blues, P. Chai playing the blues, I was stunned because I lived in Chicago for 5 years. I'm a longtime blues fan, and I just had no idea I was going to be treated to great live blues and soul and jazz. I had no idea. I didn't know. And so I got a lesson in just Thai craftsmanship, Thai musicianship, and so it's one of the reasons I stayed here. The fact that I could go out and hear music that I love played by local musicians at such a high level, and even though I'm a longtime blues fan, I lived in Chicago for 5 years, and I spent countless hours in some of the most famous blues bars in the world in Chicago. I still doubted myself a little bit, when I started hitting the blues joints here, and I thought they were great. I had some self-doubt because I'm just like, well, maybe I'm just trying to convince myself I'm in a, maybe I'm just trying to convince myself that I live in a cool city. But over the years, I've brought several musician buddies of mine to various bars, live music bars in Bangkok, and I've always been like, "Hey, I love this place, but be honest with me. If these cats can't play jazz, let me know. Because I have buddies who are like real musicians, like jazz musicians, and
right.
Without fail, every musician I've brought to these Thai bars has been like, this shit is great."
Yeah, and it's interesting too because jazz is not a Thai form of music, and I'm not saying people should stick to or can't play other forms of music, but like you would never go to Vancouver and expect to see some Canadian dude playing wicked Mal Lam music.
Right. That's exactly right.
So
right.
To come to Thailand and see Thai musicians playing really good blues, it's a bit unusual, right? Like
I didn't expect it. But I want to be clear. I was not some type of jerk on the plane being like, oh shit, like Thai, like the live music scene's going to suck. I wasn't really like that. I really had no idea. Yeah. I didn't know. I did not know. But I did expect that. If you asked me, do you think you're going to be able to find a good blues bar? I would have been like, no, I don't really I doubt this is Thailand. This is Bangkok. I don't
Right,
think they're
right,
really.
right.
But I didn't know. I was just naive. I was ignorant.
But what a pleasant surprise to find out
Oh
that
my God,
the music
yeah.
here is just world class.
Yeah, pleasant surprise squared. I mean, I fell in love with it. I mean, and I can't stop talking about it. It's like I almost didn't want to include this on this episode of the podcast because I know I've talked about it before. But
It's going to be your thing for all of the 7 deadly sins. What's for greed? Greed. I want to play all the blues.
It's not just blues musicians. It's the quality of live music in general and the sincerity of Thai musicians that I've met. And a lot of them play Thai music. So it's like they're into Thai traditional music or they can play it, but they have like a deep love and appreciation for American music. And so I can sit down with a Thai musician and talk about American music, and in most cases they know more than I do. I mean, they're actual musicians, but I mean, they're into it, man. They're deep into like the soul music out of Detroit in 1967. They're in it, man, like
Right.
for real.
So you're proud to tell people like, check this out. This is why I love living here.
And it's strange, and it's like I know, this is such a tricky issue because I know what I'm saying might sound like I am proud that there are Thai people playing my music, American music. But that is not my point. That is not my point at all. I'm proud that it's not that they're playing American music. It's just like, I just think it's so cool that they're so good at what they do and they love it so much. And it just happens to be what I love too. You know what I mean? It's not like, I'm not proud as an American that they're playing American music. That's just not how I think about it. It's just that they just happen to love what I love, and some of it is fairly obscure. I can sit down and talk to these Thai musicians about, whether it's a blues or soul or jazz person that most Americans would not know. That's my point. So this is American music, but it's not the most popular music in the States. It's by far, this is niche. So this is an American niche, but here I am in Bangkok, and I've got this group of Thai musicians who are more passionate about than I am.
Right.
So to me, I don't know, whatever. I'm just proud of that. Again, this is a sin. It's a sin of pride. I have no reason to be proud of that.
You didn't do anything.
I didn't do it.
You just ordered a drink.
I didn't do. That's right. But I think it's cool, and
That's cool. That's cool.
I try to promote it. So I guess maybe I can take pride in that. So I tell everyone I can, check out this bar, check out that bar. Or, you got to hear this guitar player. You got to hear this girl sing. So I do my best to pimp it. So
It's cool, man.
I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part.
Good for you. All right. My number 2 thing. It's odd. It's a strange choice, Ed. It's a strange choice, but this is something that whenever someone comes here, I'm like, you got to try this. You got to check this out. And it's a food thing. Bangkok is known for its food, and it's easy to say like I'm proud of Bangkok's food culture because it's famous for its vibrancy and its diversity and stuff like that.
Great place to eat.
Yes, but this one specific thing, I'm proud of it because when I tell people about it, they're like, "What? That sounds disgusting. There's no way that's a thing." And then they eat it and they go, "Damn, that's actually really good." And this is called Itim Kanom Pang. You know what that is?
Well, it sounds like ice cream.
Yeah.
Kanombang is like dessert?
Bread.
Oh, bread.
It's
Okay.
an ice cream sandwich. So if you
the
don't
ice cream
know,
sandwich. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so if you don't know, a lot of times when you go down to like the streets in the Bangkok, you can buy these from the vendors. And this is what it is. It's basically a hot dog bun, like a nice looking hot dog bun with sticky rice, ice cream, peanuts, and then some various candied fruit, like some lychees or some jellies or something like that. It sounds gross. It shouldn't work. It's weird. It's creepy. It's like rice and bread and ice cream. Those are,
It's like carbs on top of carbs on top of carbs.
Right. But it's so good. And I just love introducing people to it who have never heard of it because they're like, why does this thing exist? What nutcase decided to put ice cream in a hot dog bun with rice? And it's so good. They're really delicious and refreshing. And the ice cream melts, because it's Bangkok and it's hot and it drips onto the bread and the bread soaks it up. Like, it makes total sense from a Bangkok perspective.
Right.
And this little thing, I'm just so proud to introduce people to it, because I'm like, you see, it's crazy, right? It shouldn't work, but it does.
Okay, I got to admit, that's a pretty esoteric, it's a pretty hyper-specific thing to be proud of. But I have tried that before, and it is pretty good.
I know, it shouldn't be.
Well, I mean, I think your broader point, I think you're right about those ice cream sandwiches, but it definitely Thai food culture is so complex. I mean, and again, there's all these Thai food varieties, Northern Thai food, Eastern Thai food, Southern Thai food. And then there's like crazy desserts. There's all this Chinese influence, like Chinese desserts. And then there's like Indian influences, Muslim influences. And then there's all this Western food here. So there's killer Mexican restaurants here, killer French restaurants. It's just, the food culture is crazy.
Right. So I'm definitely proud of the overall food culture, but that's a little bit too simplistic to say, because that means anything. But
Right.
This one item is it's like anyone can be like, oh, this is beef prepared a different way, or oh, this is a fruit dish. Like, that's fairly standard. But this is just no Westerners expecting it, and most of them like it. So that's why I'm proud. I'm like, you see, creativity, inventive.
All right. So one of these days, you and I are going to do something. Wait, maybe the podcast is something that you and I can feel pride in.
Well, yeah, we do that all the time.
Okay.
Every week, baby.
All right. So I guess that would have been not a very good show if we were like, well, what can we take pride in? This show.
It's just,
we'll do a whole show.
30 minutes of me and you pointing silently at our microphones.
We're like, yes, we rock. Us.
That's right. All right. Well, that's the first of 7 shows that's going to work our way through the 7 deadly sins of Bangkok. And
okay, can I stop you there? Like, what are we going to do when we get to lust? I mean, because we do have certain boundaries we're not supposed to cross.
Yeah, we can't get too dirty, I guess. So we'll have to come up with a cleaner angle.
But it's still got to be lust.
It's still got to be lust. Yeah, definitely. That's the funnest of all the sins. All right. Well, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of life in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept it as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. And this week it is my turn to ask you, Ed.
Okay.
This is another food item.
Okay.
So you've had som tam, Ed, the papaya salad that's sort of Thailand's national dish.
I have.
And you're a vegetarian, so this probably jives with you. Have you ever had som tam kai kem? The som tam with salted eggs.
I think I have had it back in the day. Now I'm on this veggie/vegan kick, but I have had it back in the day.
It's a strange thing because I don't like salted eggs. I like som tam. What do you think when you mix them together?
Well, okay, my response is tricky because a lot of Thai food I just love. Like tom yum, love it. Tom kha, love it. All the different curries, love them. And I knew som tam was this huge national dish, especially in the Northeast, but very popular in Bangkok. And so I really tried to get into som tam, just even basic som tam, even without the salted egg. And I just couldn't do it.
Oh, really?
I wanted to love it, and I just couldn't. And I think it was a combination of it's very spicy, and then the fish sauce, which you and I both agree is best in small quantities. Mm-hmm. So I gotta say, I really hate to say this, but I gotta go loathe only because I couldn't even get into basic som tam. So I'm sure if you threw a salted egg in, it would have. It would
improve it, right?
Yeah, it would have been even worse. It's funny because I have discovered variations on som tam that So I was at a Thai restaurant once, and they happened to have like 10 varieties of som tam, like where they messed with it, And there was like an apple som tam, and I just told them, "Can you make this?" I asked them, "Can you make this without the fish sauce?" And they're like, "Yeah," and they made it, and it was great. So I've had variations of it. Modifications, but unfortunately, traditional som tam with or without the salted egg, I don't like it.
All right, fair enough. I love som tam and the salted. I don't like salted eggs, but I like som tam kai kem. The salted eggs are a nice little kick, and on their own, they're not too good. But when you mix it around on the plate or in your mouth with the rest of the somtam spiciness. I dig it. It's a bit of a strange taste, but I like it. I'm gonna say love. I'll eat a plate of that. Yeah, love it.
More power to you. This is one of those things where I wish I loved it, but the simple truth is I don't.
Just like what my mom said to me. A little self-deprecating humor there.
Okay, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Liam Ahern for lending us his support at the show shoutout level. Greg, what did you find out about Liam?
Well, and as it turns out, Liam didn't give me much to work with. He did reply to my email, but I think this pins him as the strong, silent type, because as you know, I send an email to all of our new shout-out patrons asking them to describe a fun bit of trivia or give me a story about them so we have something to chat about here. But you know what Liam's reply was, Ed?
No, I don't.
It was 4 words. Once struck by lightning.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that was it. That was all I got to work with.
Once struck by lightning. Whoa.
Once struck by lightning. Yeah. And I hope he means only once, too. Like, once I was struck by lightning 7 times in one day. I don't think that's... But...
I gotta say this. I like the brevity of the response. I mean, that really just cuts to the...
right, it's only 4 words, but there's a lot to unpack there, right? Like, what happened? Where were you? I guess you survived, but did everyone else come out okay?
Right. I mean, and you got to figure that's kind of unlucky, right?
Yeah, well, or check this out. I'm glad you said that because I think that what we should do is, Liam, we're going to need a photo of you. We need you to send us a very high definition photo of your face, because I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down to some of those temples across the river near Sirirad Hospital. They make all the amulets, and I'm going to get them to make me a little Liam amulet mold with a picture of Liam in it. And then I'm going to print off a box of these amulets, and I'm going to walk around behind the people who walk around the city selling lottery tickets. And I'm going to be like, yo, this guy on the amulet, he was struck by lightning. How crazy is that? I bet you tons of people will buy them, and they will pray over them, and they'll be like, if this guy can get struck by lightning, I can win the lottery. We're going to make a mint.
I like your spin, dude. It's funny because you can look at getting struck by lightning as extremely unlucky, or maybe it means something special is going on.
That's right. It's a very glass half empty, half full thing, right?
Right. If you're optimistic, it means you're extremely lucky because you got hit by lightning and you survived.
Right. So, Liam, thanks for your support, man. That's a crazy story. We'll split the proceeds with you 50-50, but send us that photo. And when you're in town, let's have a beer. And I really would like to hear more about this story because it sounds insane.
I think we need some more details.
Yeah, totally.
Alrighty. A final thanks to our patrons who help keep the show ad-free. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping support the show. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Totes my goats. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can chat with us online, or you can even reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg if you want. So thanks for listening, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you back here next week.
For sure.
I have this little cough still with me, this little cough. And the pharmacist gave me these little pills that you drop in water and dissolve them in water, and they're like,
right.
They foam, fizz in water and stuff. They're delicious. I'm kind of addicted to them. I think they're like candy. They taste like oranges.
I thought that was normally for stomach problems, like get antacid and stuff like that.
Well, this one is called Fluimucil. And apparently it helps with your cough and your phlegm.
Oh.
But, yeah, there's take one every twice a day. So I take 4 twice a day because they're really good.
So funny. At least it's
hopefully no side effects.
It's better than medicine that tastes like shit. So there you go.
I guess so. Okay.